The Save America Act is yet another Republican attempt to intimidate and suppress the votes of anyone who threatens their extremist white supremacist agenda.
Well, that escalated quickly. Hey everyone, this is Matt Wills with Defining Ethos. Now, we covered earlier that the left's strategy against the SAVE Act rested on the perception that minorities are incompetent. Voter ID could mean different things to different people, said Kamala. People simply don't know how to get their birth certificate. They'll have to figure out the complications of Xeroxing. Well, the SAVE Act passed in the House today, and the minorities are incompetent talking point must not have been working well enough, so they extended the strategy to some other things. So let's watch.
They're trying to say this is a voter ID bill. That's not what's happening here. Let's just look at a typical mom. You guys must know some working mothers. The ones that I hear from across my district and across this country, they are struggling to put food on the table for their kids, working 2 jobs to try and make ends meet, trying to juggle getting their kids to school, maybe catching an occasional game, fearing they're never going to be able to find childcare they can afford, and praying nobody in the family gets sick because they can't afford a doctor either. And now you're going to say to those women, because they got married and changed their names, they have to go down to a clerk and prove they're citizens, sign affidavits, do this in person?
Wow, did she just paint a gruesome picture for her district. Kinda threw her district under the bus there. But if it's that bad, maybe she shouldn't be legislating. But of course, this is just theater. The average household income in her district is about $105,000. So now the incompetence goalpost has moved to encapsulate married women. And if that's the case, then wouldn't that just hurt Republicans more anyway? So now there's this big fear tactic to make women believe that the system could just lose them. But like any other legal form, it's going to ask, have you been known by any other name? Yes, here's the name, here's the birth certificate. Not complicated. Now, I'm sure the people who clicked on this video understand that the left wants no voting standard or transparency so they can get away with murder. But you don't know the half of it. There's recently a constructed Democrat bill to add people as young as 16 to the voter rolls. So if we lose out in the midterms, don't think the crazy legislation that's passing here in Virginia won't extend to the rest of the country. That's why we need to show up big in the midterms. And I'll be posting a video going over that bill soon. Now let's watch the next one.
Here's who it will hurt. More than 140 million Americans don't have a passport, including Republicans, by the way. As many as 69 million women who follow the traditional practice of changing their name after marriage do not have a birth certificate that matches their legal name. Republicans know this and want to use that misinformation to block them from voting. This bill would eliminate the voter registration methods over 90% of Americans rely on, including online, mail-in, and DMV registration. In rural areas, Americans would be forced to drive 7 or 8 hours round trip just to show documents, and they would have to do it every single time they move. When Kansas tried a similar law, 32,000 eligible citizens were blocked from registering. 0 non-citizens were found because election officials had already verified their eligibility.
So again, women won't be able to navigate the system. And you know what's ironic about this talking point is that if we clean up the voter rolls, their vote is less diluted, which means it holds more value. But they don't care about the value your vote holds. You're just a pebble in a quarry that they're trying to push through as conveniently as possible. Then she moves from the perceived incompetence of women to inconvenience. You may have to drive somewhere. In the first clip I showed, the lady said, you'll have to show up in person. Like that's some big deal. So now they're appealing to convenience. And this is actually a major reason why I'm a conservative. There's value in standards and there's value in discipline. But the left caters to the confused, the mentally ill, and those who won't help themselves. But if you cater to people, their behavior tends to become worse. They need to face the struggles of the world. My favorite Jordan Peterson rule is put your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Meaning, if you can't create order and master your immediate domain, what makes you think you could positively affect anything bigger than yourself? And in this case, if there's someone out there that simply can't figure out voter ID or don't care enough to go through the motions to get it, should they really be voting anyway? Thankfully, Representative Harriet Hagman from Wyoming understands the absurdity of women being incapable of voter ID.
I think it is shockingly racist and sexist for my colleagues on the other side to believe that we are not smart enough to figure out how to get IDs. I can assure you that we are, even if we get married. The Save America Act requires individuals to provide documented proof of U.S. citizenship along with a valid photo ID when registering to vote. This common sense legislation strengthens election integrity through practical measures, including voter ID requirements and safeguards to prevent non-citizens from voting. The Save America Act is particularly important as we continue to address the consequences of the Biden-Harris border crisis, which led to millions of individuals entering the country unlawfully. Secure elections are fundamental to maintaining public confidence in our democratic process. The state of Wyoming has already taken steps to implement many of the reforms outlined in this bill, demonstrating that securing our elections must be a national priority.
Make competence standard again. It's great to have a female rep calling out this absurdity, and realistically, adults need to be responsible. And the more responsible our citizenry, the better off we'll be and the more informed we'll vote. Now, I saved the most extreme talking point for last, so here we're moving from inconvenience and incompetence to full-blown white supremacy.
Look, as I hear my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, what I hear is the same racist, misogynistic trash, different decade. Republicans are invoking historical policies intended, let's be clear, to disenfranchise Americans, especially working people, women, students, indigenous people, and anyone who can't afford the burdens of a new bill. The Save America Act is yet another Republican attempt to intimidate and suppress the votes of anyone who threatens their extremist white supremacist agenda.
Verify who you are, white supremacy. When you see all these variations of talking points, it's just desperation. They're grasping at straws to see what lands. And the whole racist, misogynistic thing, these aren't moral judgments to them, they're utilitarian tools. The left uses words like these as tools because the right has moral standards. So when we hear these things, we feel it morally. They don't, so they use these words as a tool to get what they want. But if this language is a tool, that means that you should treat it that way and see right through it. It's nothing. It doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't even make sense. As always, thanks for watching.